Dune is a science fiction film directed by Denis Villeneuve that tells the story of the young nobleman Paul Atreides, Timothy Chalamet, and his family's struggle to control the desert planet of Arrakis, the only known source of the valuable spice melange, and the power that comes with it. The film is an adaptation of the 1965 novel of the same name by Frank Herbert. The movie begins with a voiceover that explains the history of the universe and the importance of the spice, which can extend life, enhance mental abilities, and enable space travel. We then meet Paul Atreides, the son of Duke Leto Atreides, Oscar Isaac, who has just been appointed by the Emperor to take over control of Arrakis from the House Harkonnen, led by the villainous Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, Stellan Skarsgård. The Atreides family moves to Arrakis, and Paul begins to learn about the harsh environment of the planet, the native Fremen people, and the power struggles between the various factions. He also starts to have prophetic dreams that hint at his destiny as a savior or destroyer of the planet. The Atreides family tries to rule over Arrakis, but they are betrayed by the Emperor's confidant, Uail. That night, Duke Leto, who was resting, was lured out of his resting place when Duke suddenly saw a dying Fremen. Uail then shot from behind the Duke and finally the Duke died. To prevent the Atreides family from suspecting Uail of being the killer, Uail then informs Gurney that Duke Leto has been killed. After the death of Duke Leto, Arrakis was then attacked by the troops of Harkonnen and there was a battle there. Paul and his mother, Lady Jessica, Rebecca Ferguson, were taken by the Harkonnen troop. On the way to Harkonnen, they plan to kill Paul by throwing him out of the plane. However, Paul and his mother used their powers to influence the Harkonnen army to kill their friends and ordered them to be released. Paul and his mother survived, then fled to the desert. Paul and Lady Jessica have to survive in the desert. There they both learned about Freeman's beliefs and way of life. Paul began to develop his supernatural abilities. Paul had visions of a holy war expanding throughout the universe like an unquenchable fire. Duncan Idaho then finds Paul and Lady Jessica in the desert and takes them away in a helicopter. Due to a storm, they took refuge at the ecological testing post belonging to the Fremen. When Paul and Dr. Lead Kynes talking outside, it turns out that the troops of the brothers managed to find their hiding place and a battle ensued. Duncan Idaho eventually died in the battle. After that, Jessica, Paul, and Dr. Kynes went to run away. Paul and Lady Jessica go by helicopter to find Fremen. They both have to go through the storm to survive Saudakar's pursuit. Meanwhile, Dr. Lead Kynes will cross the desert to report the attack to the Landsraad. Jessica and Paul finally managed to use the helicopter and survived the big storm, but Dr. Kynes died shortly after fishing for hewlett or giant worms to hinder the Saudakar army. Raban reports to the Baron that Jessica and Paul have died because they got into a desert storm. Next, Baron orders Raban to sell the spice reserves and kill all the Fremen. After surviving the storm, Paul and his mother were chased by worms. Giant, but finally they can survive. They then met with the Fremen and also the Fremen leader, Stilgar. Paul also finally met Chani, the Fremen woman who was always present in Paul's dreams. However, there was a Fremen member named James who disagreed with Paul and Jessica joining Fremen members. James asked Paul to fight with him. Chani then gave Paul the Kryze knife because he thought it would be an honor if Paul died by holding the Kryze knife. The fight began. Finally Paul managed to beat James and kill him. Finally Paul, Lady Jessica, Chani, Stilgar, and the other Fremen members continued their journey. At the end of the film, Stilgar, the leader of the Fremen, then accepts Paul as a Fremen, and invites Paul to come with them to Siege-Tabr. But Jessica refuses and says Paul will go to another planet. Paul also said that his father came not for spices, not for his wealth, but for the strength of the Fremen people. The path would still lead to the desert, and Paul made sure to see him in the future. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe this channel.